welcome back for more of our interview with Payge and Natalie of eclecticbuy.com.
I had an epiphany this morning while I was driving to work, and I was like, as a woman who's trying to make it in the art realm or business, it's you feel kind of pulled, like it's abnormal for your nature to have that pathway. And so it's as if we have to bulldoze a forest to make our journey of what we need it to be. And we're working extra hard, and it'll pull us down before we can overcome it if we don't. So that mindset has to be strong enough to be like, I can't quit today and I can't quit tomorrow. This is what I've decided. This is my passion. This is what I'm going to go for it. And
at some point, I think being able to do your art, no matter what your genre or medium is, whether it's music, writing, painting, sketching, whatever, cake decorating, I don't know, it becomes as important as breathing. You really don't feel right if you don't write that day, if you don't write at least a phrase or a line, or or pick up a paintbrush and put a stroke on a painting that sat there for a month or something. At least that's my experience, is I kind of need to do something creative every day, or else I just feel like I've become this like shell of a Hulk, a hulking, cowering shell in the corner, not quite human, something from a horror movie. But anyway, so that's probably enough about obstacles and discouragement, because that's just so right. But unless Paige, you had anything to add with that.
No, I am alongside that 100%. I actually would not even sign a lot of my first paintings, and I just, hey, they're by me, but hey, I just don't want my name on there. But I've had to learn as an artist, this is what we do. We're going to get our name out there. And I've actually started to add poems on the back of my
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, that's a good segue into highlights, because I think a highlight of any art's journey is that moment or time, or that part of your journey where you are feeling more confident about yourself as a creative soul. And it's funny, because I think in American culture, for many I don't know, a couple hundred years at least, maybe, I think women have always been thought of as being nurturing and creative. They sewed, they cooked, they, blah, blah, blah. A lot of teachers when I was younger, art teachers, were always women. They were not men, because men were real artists, okay? You see that distinction? Women can teach, men can be the real artists, okay? And I think it's so important for us to say, to recognize that there is a moment in every creative person's life, male or female, where they realize, I can do this. And not only can I do this, I am this. It becomes part of their identity to be a creative. So tell me a little bit about that, and then also about, what do you love about being that creative soul that you are? Whoever wants to go first, I don't care.
Payge, was going to go first. Oh, did you hand it off on me? Okay.
Well, I went first last time. It's only fair.
It's only fair.
So if we're unpacking this, my creative soul definitely has encountered some struggles, because I've also wanted to be the business person behind it. I want to get you in contact with this other artist, because I love the way that you two collaborate together.
Sure.
And so I loved the artist realm, and I was a whole supporter. I loved buying art. I loved going to the art shows. I was always around it and wanted to be a part of it, but did not feel confident in myself. So I think the highlight of my art journey then would be when I started speaking with other artists, and when I was around other artists, I became that artist.
Yeah.
And so it was something where everyone else was putting you up on a pedestal and helping you. And that was the community I wanted to be around after.
They're always helping you climb up the ladder. They're reaching back with a helping hand, or pushing your butt up from, if they're, someone's either reaching up or someone's pushing your butt up the ladder, right?
Always learning new styles.
Yeah.
I'm learning new details, new brush strokes, and how to do it. So I'm always improving, and it's something that keeps my interest as well.
Yeah. Natalie, what about you?
I really can't top that at all.
I think,
Because I agree
yeah.
with her. I
Last
really
time.
do. Yeah, I agree with her though, because like I said when I first started off last time, is that Paige has been in this journey with me, and I appreciate the entire time that she has put in the work that we put in. It's
Mhm.
great. I appreciate it. We work well, but she has introduced me to a lot of great people that I know now that have taught me to accept that there are different mediums that can come
Yeah.
together. There are different brush strokes you can do, or even different forms of poetry or ways of writing,
Right.
of expressing yourself. And I'm more of a visual learner, and I feel like this is so visual, and
Right.
it's so like you can connect with people in that aspect. So
Yeah.
it really has helped me be more open to what I have to say about how I'm feeling.
I think that's so important that you feel that connection with Paige, and that as creatives in general, we have connections with other artists. That's why I love doing at the round table. When Sarah E. and I decided to create this podcast in the first place, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I didn't even know I'd heard the word podcast. I'm 58 years old, and at the time I was like 56 and a half-ish maybe. And I'm like, I've heard this word podcast. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to do it, but we're going to have one. And that's pretty much been my approach to everything I've ever done in my life. It's like I've self-taught, other than my academic degrees, which have nothing to do with art. I have degrees in anthropology, geography, and I was in an applied linguistics PhD program until my health deteriorated to the point I had to leave it. But I mean, everything, technology on the computer, artsy stuff, paintbrush. You were talking about what different paintbrushes strokes do. I don't know. I make them up. I just say, oh, I like this paintbrush. I'll do this with it. I mean, I'm totally self-taught. So, that's just kind of the way I've always been. It's like, okay, I'm going to need some equipment. I'm going to need some software, and we're going to have a podcast, But the driving passion behind doing that was two things. We, Sarah E. and I, like to talk to artists of all kinds because that inspires us. No matter what their art genre or medium or perspective or whatever is, we get inspired by their story, their art's journey. And then the other thing was we wanted, as an organization, a nonprofit arts organization, to be able to, at least record all these artists and put that recording out there. Hopefully someday have a huge following of listeners, but just support other artists. Our organization doesn't have money to do a stipend or give an honorarium or anything like that, but we wanted to at least be able to say, hey, we talked to this writer, we talked to this artist, we talked to this musician, and here's what they had to say, at the round table. And so we've been really happy doing that because it is exactly why what you guys are saying, talking to other artists makes you feel good. It makes you feel connected. It's that community of creativity. And so that I think also bolsters our confidence in ourselves as artists, as creatives. I think if we talk to the artists and realize that they have the same struggles, the same kind of, self-doubts, everybody has them, the more you talk to people, the more you're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty normal for an artist. All artists are crazy, sure, but I'm pretty normal for an artist, right? So anyway, yeah. Now, we have to talk a little bit about this crazy life that we lead in I can't say the beginning, the middle, the end, whatever it is, a global pandemic. COVID-19 5.0 raging on, It has impacted everybody in the world, but I think, because we're an arts organization and this podcast is about the arts, we always want to talk about how COVID-19 has impacted our guests and, adjustments they may have made, how it's impacted their writing or their painting or their creativity, and then also how they're adjusting, to, not being able to be around people quite as much as back in the pre-pandemic days. So what do you think about that as a lovely topic? A lovely little session here. We'll talk about COVID-19.
I'll start this one off. So I feel like for this pandemic, it's been both negative and positive for me, I feel like, because in a way, it sucks that, a lot of companies had to close down. We had to, quarantine for months or so. But in that time period that we did quarantine, we obviously just home doing nothing. Some people ended up gardening. Some people ended up putting up privacy fences, just doing projects around the house.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's the creative part of it, is that people were choosing to do projects.
Cooking more.
Our project that we chose was to become more of an artist, paint more, write more, set up our website, finish up a book, and editing and everything. So it got us working in that aspect,
Yeah.
and it was negative in a way too, because you're just by yourself, you know what I mean? So it's like you get in that state where it's like, okay,
you get way much more up in your own head.
State, right. My mental state is not okay right now. Like, I'm not socializing. I know for a fact I lost a lot of social skills.
Yeah.
And going out to these art events and art festivals and having to speak to people that are walking by is making me practice those skills again that I lost, or that I haven't really been in touch with in the last year, that I've been slacking on. So it's different to see that change, within the blink of your eyes, honestly.
Yeah. It was kind of hard, I think, for a lot of people who were just starting to come into their own as creative souls and get out there and take their artwork out into the world one way or another. Suddenly this pandemic hits, and it's almost like what you said, that isolation. Really, I've talked to a lot of artists who felt they just had lost their creative juice. They didn't pick up those paintbrushes for 6-8 months. They didn't they didn't write anything, and slowly they had to find a way back to their creative purposes. And one of the things you said touched on that, and that was that they got back to being creative by doing things like those home improvement projects, discovering recipes and cooking again, or for the first time in their lives, baking bread or whatever from scratch. Gardening, they found their way back to creativity through a different channel than they'd ever had before. So I agree with you. I think it's been both a curse and a blessing. The curse, the worst curse is obviously, being, separated from friends and family during the times of quarantine, and just the kind of pall over the whole world that this pandemic has put, this sadness and the grieving for the people who've been lost, and the grieving for the people who are still getting infected and ill. And it's a very horrific. I mean, this is like a horror story, right? I mean, playing out people who's lost loved ones, but then there are also people who've lost homes and their businesses, and it's just it's a horror story. It really is. And so it's hard to kind of like, oh, I'm going to paint a painting today, when you feel this crushing world sorrow. It's kind of hard sometimes. Stay tuned for more from our interview with Payge and Natalie of eclecticby.com.